So the introduction, Hare Krishna all. So the introduction Sumit Prabhuji has just provided. The entire credit goes to Sumit Prabhu. I always consider myself to be a very neophyte devotee, and I'm just trying to crawl on the path of bhakti, all guided by Sumit Prabhu as well as Mataji. Thank you so much. All right, so thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to walk you through this interesting chapter 8 summary. So the seventh chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is titled as the knowledge of the absolute. And once anyone gains this transcendental knowledge of the absolute, he would be eager to attain the same. And that is exactly what is covered in the 8th chapter, which is titled as Attaining the Supreme. Krishna in this chapter provides the formula for how can one attain him and decodes each and every fragment or component of the formula. In this chapter, Krishna acts like a GPS. In today's term, we can call it as a GPS, like global positioning system. Whenever we are going to an unknown terrain, we put on the GPS in our car, and the lady or the man guides us where exactly we need to turn, on how much distance we have to go, and things like that. So Krishna in this chapter acts as GPS and help us understand the various avenues for attaining him. And as the GPS system puts us on the fastest route by calculating the condition of the path as well as traffic, Krishna is helping us know the path which is the safe and guaranteed to reach him. So this 8th chapter is divided in 6 sections for our better understanding. The first section is basically Arjuna's questions and Lord's answers. The second section is remembering Krishna at the time of death, which is almost covered for the entire length of the chapter then. Then the third section is talking about remembrance of Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti, remembrance of Krishna by Shuddha Bhakti, and then remembrance by comparing material and the spiritual world. So Krishna is comparing material as well as the spiritual world. And the last section talks about remembrance of Krishna by Bhakti Yoga is easier than the Ashtanga Yoga. So Krishna is basically helping us understand, like the GPS. These are the various avenues which are available, but I can tell you, like, this is the best way for you to reach me. So before we start the recap of the chapter 8, let's quickly brush the 29th and the 30th verse from the chapter 7. Why? Because in these two verses, there were a few terms which were explained, and these are considered as the seed verses for the chapter 8. So 7.29 talks about, Jara Marana Mokshaya Mama Ashritya Yatantiye Te Brahma Tadvidu Krutsnam Adhyatma Karma Chakhilam. And 7.30 talked about Sadi Bhuta Adidaivam Mam Sadi Yagyam Chaye Viduhu Prayanakale Api Cha Mam Te Vidura Yukta Chetasaha. So you can see in these, there are, a few terms which are used, and these are Brahman, Adhyatma, Karma, Adibhuta, Adidaiva, Adiyagya, and Prayanakali. And so the first two verses of this 8th chapter are Arjuna's questions to understand these terms and to know how can one remember Krishna at the time of death, that is Prayanakali. So the first verse is Arjuna Uvacha Kim tad Brahma Kim Adhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kim Uchchate. And the next verse, set of another questions. Adhyagya katham ko atra dehe asmina madhusudana prayanakale cha katham geyo asi niyatatmabhi. So you can see that in the first verse, the word Kim is used 5 times by Arjuna. So Arjuna is trying to understand, what is this? I don't know. You need to explain these things to me. So Arjuna is trying to understand what is Brahman, what is self, what are fruitive activities, what is the material manifestation, and what are demigods. And in the second verse, he's trying to understand who is the Lord of sacrifice and how does he live in the body. And how can those engaged in devotional service know him at the time of death? So Arjuna is using the word Madhusudan here. As we know, every time he is having some doubts, he is using the word Madhusudan because he is expecting Krishna to kill the demon of doubts in his mind as he killed the demon Madhu. So in the next two verses, Krishna explains, the various terms at a high level. Arjuna's question, what is Brahman? Krishna answers that it is Jiva. And what is Jiva? Jiva is not the body. It is the indestructible, that is Aksharam. Kshara and Akshara. So Kshara means, which is destructible. And Akshara is basically which is not, destructible. So that is the indestructible, transcendental living entity separate from the material body. That is soul. And that is what is Brahman. Krishna explains what is Adhyatma. So Krishna explains that is Swabhava. So Swabhava basically is the nature. In Hindi also we use the word Swabhava, and that is eternal nature. But here the eternal nature or the constitutional position of the living entity is to serve. Jivere Swarupe hoy Nitya Krishna Das. And this is different from our material consciousness, which is, the thinking that I am the mine. This is my spouse. These are my children. This is, my car. This is my house. So that is not Adhyatma. Adhyatma is understanding the eternal nature, the constitutional position, that is serving Krishna. Then Krishna answers karma. So this was discussed in detail in chapter 3 as well as chapter 5 by using terms like what is action, what is inaction, what is action in inaction, what is reaction, what is chain of action and reactions, etc. However, Krishna explains here that these are the activities which transmigrates from one material body to the other material body. So a chain of activities which transmigrate the soul from one material body to the other material body. So if one's karma or the activities throughout his life, they mean to make him take the body of a dog. But if he desires or if he visualizes at the time of death a palace, so what he would become is a dog in the palace. Krishna explains the term Adi Bhuta, and that is Prakriti. So the constantly changing, that is the Kshara, physical world or the material body consisting of the material elements is called as Adi Bhuta. Adi Daiva, that is demigods. The Virat Purusha. You will see that, in chapter 11. The gigantic universal form, which includes all the demigods and their planets. We have, you will be covering that in chapter 11. And that is what is Adi Daiva. And Adi Yajna, Krishna explains that to be Paramatma. So I, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the Supreme Lord, represented as the Super Soul. If you recollect the last verse of chapter 5, 5.29, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam, Sarva Lokam Maheshwaram. So that is what is Adi Yajna. And if you recollect, the 5 elements of the Bhagavad Gita were discussed at the very beginning. At the introduction, Srila Prabhupada has also explained that. And these were like Jiva, Ishvara, Prakriti, Karma, and Kala. So Krishna has clarified almost all of these elements here in these 5 responses or in these verses to Arjuna's questions. And how is Adi Agya known in the body? So that is in the heart of every embodied being as a regulator. And then Krishna confirms that I inspire performance of sacrifice and other acts. So that is what Krishna explains. So you can see that almost all of Arjuna's questions are answered by Krishna at a high level quickly. And one question that remains unanswered, and that is how to know Krishna at the time of death. And this remains the main subject for the remainder of the chapter now. And in the next verse, Krishna gives the guarantee how, and remembering Krishna alone at once attains Krishna. And there is no doubt. Krishna tells him that there is no doubt. And look at this guarantee by Krishna. Antakale cha mameva smarana muktva kalevaram. Yah prayati sa madbhavam yati nasti atra samshayaha. So he's clearly telling at the time of death, one remembers me would surely reach me. There is no doubt. And in this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. The word smaranam is very important here. And that helps us purify. Only by constantly thinking of Krishna can one become purified. And we need to always remember one thing. For an impure soul, remembrance of Krishna at the time of death or even during his lifetime is not possible. Hence, practicing Krishna consciousness throughout one's life is very important. And that would help us remember Krishna at the time of death also. The most important aspect on this path would be chanting the holy names. There may be impediments on this path, like there is winter season. Oh, I don't want to get up early in the morning. But one needs to tolerate them and keep the focus on the final exam. Matras parshastu kaunteya, shitoshna sukha dukkhada, right? We have learned that already in the second chapter. If Krishna is giving this guarantee that anyone who remembers me at the time of death would surely reach me and there is no doubt. Does anyone have any example of Krishna fulfilling this particular, guarantee? Yes, there is. Ajamal. We know that he was a Brahmana, but he fell down and he got one prostitute and he again got himself involved into the material engagements. Luckily, his youngest son was named after Narayana. When Yamaduta came to take him away, he called his son Narayana. Please understand this. He did not call Krishna, he did not call Narayana. He called his son Narayana because he was very much attached to his youngest son Narayana. What happened? Immediately Vishnu Dutats came. And the result was he got a second chance. He was lucky. We may not be. And we need to also understand that our sons and daughters aren't named after Krishna. So there is no chance that we calling, Narayana or Krishna at the time of death if we are involved in all nonsensical activities throughout our life. So we have to put deliberate actions throughout our life. One interesting observation, if you look at the purport of Srila Prabhupada, the purport is very small for this particular verse, but he has used the entire Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The entire Krishna Mahamantra twice in this very relatively small purport to emphasize the importance of remembrance of Krishna and to emphasize the importance of chanting. Can a person at the time of death, okay, fine, it's very easy now. I will shoot myself, Krishna, tak. So can I reach Krishna like this? We need to understand. In this verse, it is clearly mentioned smaranam and not kirtanam. One may say Krishna and shoot himself, but he may not be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. And if he is involved in all nonsensical activities, it's very difficult for anyone to remember Krishna. And Krishna has already explained this clearly in the verse 4.9, Jarma Karma Cha Me Divyam. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving this body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. That is what is explained in 4.9. So, just by taking the name of Krishna at the time of death may not suffice. As the person needs to understand Krishna in Tattvataha, we need to live Krishna consciousness throughout our life. We need to understand the purpose of, Janma Karma Che Me Divyam. And we need to understand Krishna Tattvataha. Only then we will be able to reach Krishna's abode, right? So what do we do during our lifetime is the preparation for the important exam called death. We have our kids preparing for important exams. They are preparing for JEE, they are preparing for NEET, etc. So they have to put all their efforts for 2 years or maybe for the entire of their student life to prepare themselves for the exam. It's not like, okay, fine, tomorrow is my exam, I will start preparing today. No, they are not going to crack that exam for sure. In the same manner, Krishna consciousness has to be practiced throughout our life. Only then we would be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. And this is the entrance exam to Krishna's abode. And we need to always remember, we can't cheat the biggest cheater of the universe, and that is Krishna. And we need to remember that. So by any cheating aspects, we can't reach him. In the next verse, Krishna actually gives a twist. He says, Yam yam vapi smarana bhava tajyatante kalevaram. Tam tam evati kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. He tells that in the last verse he has told, anyone who remembers me would reach me. But here he is giving a twist to the tale. He is telling that whatever being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. So the exam is getting a bit difficult now. This is almost like introduction of negative marking system, right? One may feel that, okay, fine. If I don't remember Krishna, fine. I will probably get the birth of a human being next time. And I would again have a similar sort of life, which is very comfortable for me at this moment of time. No, that may not happen. Because here Krishna is clearly telling, Yam yam vapi smarana bhava tyajyatante kalevaram. At the time of death, whatever you think of, you are going to surely attain that. So if someone remembers his dog at the time of death, he would become a dog. If his karmas are, to take him the body of a cockroach, but he thinks of a palace, he would become a cockroach in a palace. So that is what happens, when we leave this particular body. The process of changing the nature at the critical moment of death is explained here. And how can one die in the proper state of mind? That is also required to be, practiced. We have heard the story of Bharat Maharaj, first class devotee, who was at the stage of bhava. Bhava, and next is prema. We have learned the 9 stages of, bhakti. So he got attached to a deer and was transferred to the body of a deer. No doubt, he was a first class devotee. So he remembered his past birth. And even when he became a deer, he almost, lived a life of a sannyasi. So that was possible for Bharat Maharaj, but that is not possible for us. So if you are, just think, if you attended a funeral during a day, and when you are retiring to your bed, what thoughts are coming to your mind? Is your mind at peace? Are you, able to sleep well? It's not possible. You have met a dearest friend after many years on a day. When you are going to bed, your mind would be still excited. You will not be again able to sleep well. If you have got a very important meeting tomorrow, or maybe there is an important interview tomorrow, your mind is restless. And that is what is, our mind is so fickle that whatever happens during the day does not go away from our mind, and it's occupied constantly when we are retiring to our beds, and sometimes also during our sleep in the form of dreams. So just imagine if we continue to ignore Krishna all our life, how can we remember him at the time of death? So if someone is saying that I shall do all nonsensical activities throughout my life, but I will remember Krishna at the time of death, trust me, this is not at all possible. So one needs to transcendentally be absorbed in Krishna's service, and then his next body would be transcendental and not material. So that is possible only by practicing Krishna consciousness. We all are grahasthas, and we have our own battles like Arjuna. He was having the supreme personality of Godhead next to him to burn all his doubts. But we are buried under the influence of Maya. And in the next verse, Krishna gives us the practical tip of conducting our things on how to remember Krishna. He says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mama anusmara yuddhacha. Mayyar pita manobuddhir mama vaishyasi asamshayam. He tells Arjuna that he should always think of Krishna and at the same time carry out his prescribed duties. So he is doing, yuddha, he's shooting arrows, thinking about Krishna. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without fail, Arjuna. This instruction that is given by Krishna in this particular verse is very important. At the same time, very, very practical for all of us. The Lord does not say to give up the prescribed duties. If that was the case, when Arjuna was in doubt, he would have said that, Arjuna, I will fight, you drive the chariot. Or he would have just, asked the Sudarshan Chakra to kill all the Kauravas. But he did not do that. He wanted Arjuna to follow his prescribed duties. We have already seen this in chapter 2 and 3. So how can we do this? We can continue our duties chanting Hare Krishna, and that would help one become free from material contamination and become pure and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. We had a similar message from Krishna in 3.30, if you remember, Mayi Sarvani Karmani. But the instructions there were to surrender all your works unto me. It included post-action offering. And here he talks about pre-action meditation. So there is a difference. So once we are doing something, remembering Krishna, trust me, the precursor is already set. Our expectations are already set. And there is very less chance of we getting attached to the fruit of our karma. And that is the difference between post-action offering and pre-action meditation. And hence, the instructions mentioned in 8.7 are very, very important. They are expecting us to set our expectations. If you recollect 3.27, Prakriteha kriyamanani gunehe karmani sarvasha ahankar vimudatma karta aham iti manyate. One who thinks he is the doer would develop doership, which leads to ownership, and that leads to enjoyership. However, a person who follows the instructions given in 8.7, Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu, Mama Anusmar Yuddhacha, will not develop that doership and would be doing the prescribed duties, thinking about Krishna always. And that's the reason why I feel that the instructions of 8.7 are very, very important and very, very practical. We should try to implement them in our day-to-day life. That would help us go a long way in Krishna consciousness. In the next verse, Krishna explains the path of reaching him whilst working in this material world. Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanya paramam purusham divyam yati parthanu chintayan. Krishna tells Arjuna that one who meditates on him as the supreme personality of God, his mind constantly engaged in remembering Krishna, undeviated from the path, is sure to reach him. So again, how can we remember Krishna? Krishna stresses the importance of remembering him again. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting. We have got a thick layer of material attachment and we have forgotten our true position. We don't recollect we are part and parcel of Krishna, and we don't recollect we are the eternal servant of Krishna. Only by chanting, only by hearing the sound vibration of this Mahamantra, one can attain the Supreme Lord. That helps us get rid of the thick material covering, and then we get, directly connected to Krishna. When we are chanting the holy name of the Lord, Krishna is actually present on our tongue. We have heard that on so many japa talks. So many senior devotees tell us our tongue is like Kaliya, and Krishna is dancing on that Kaliya. His name is an incarnation, of him in Kali Yuga, and that is what is, dancing on our tongue. So there is no difference between Krishna's form, name, his pastimes, his abode, his qualities. And my thirst will not be quenched by just saying water, 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 water. For that, I have to, lift a glass of water and drink that, right? But there is no difference between Krishna and Krishna's name. And my connection with Krishna gets re-established by chanting the holy name of the Lord. And that's the reason why it's very important for us to keep remembering Krishna always. In the next section, Krishna talks about remembrance of him by Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Now, Krishna explains the qualities of him one should meditate upon. The most important thing to remember is Krishna isn't impersonal or void. It's very difficult to meditate on a void. Just close your eyes and meditate on something. What something? Oh, nothing. It's very difficult. He says one should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything. He is the oldest, Adi Purusham, and who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest. We have seen in the second chapter that the soul is the size of the 10,000th part of the tip of the hair. And Krishna resides in the heart of such a tiny soul. So we can understand how small he could be. And later on in the 10th and the 11th chapter, you would see how large he is, how, he has occupied everything in this universe, who is maintainer of everything, who is beyond all the material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. We know that our senses are imperfect. If someone, puts a sticker on my back, it's like, like 12 inches away from my eyes. But I can't see it because my senses are so imperfect. And that's the reason why it is not possible for us to understand Krishna by our senses. We, don't even understand the material world fully. And there is no way that we can persuade Krishna by our tiny little brain. It's impossible. We all have seen that our body is made up of 5 gross elements, the Mahabhutas: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Out of these 5, earth is the coarsest, that is the heaviest, and ether is the most subtle. However, our subtle body, which is made up of the subtler items than the ether also. And these are mind, intelligence, and false ego. In there also, mind is the coarsest, whereas false ego is the subtlest. However, Krishna Tattva is even subtler than the false ego. So you can imagine there is a huge gap between, our gross body, our subtle body, our senses, and the Krishna Tattva. So it is very difficult for us to comprehend Krishna by using our senses. And that gap can be filled only by bhakti. We have recently understood the Damodar month, right? The Kartik month. And we have heard about how Yashoda Mai was trying to tie Krishna to the morsel. When she was trying to tie Krishna, the rope was always falling short by a couple of fingers. No matter what length of rope she was bringing in, every time it was falling short by, a couple of inches. Why? That couple of inches represent 1 inch has to be our endeavor to walk towards Krishna. And trust me, the another inch would be covered by Krishna. And that is possible only by our unalloyed love and nothing else. Krishna does not want anything else from our side. He wants only unalloyed love from our end. Later, Krishna explains the importance of fixing the mind at the Supreme Lord at the time of death. One needs to understand, one can't suddenly remember Krishna at the time of death. For the same, one needs to have practiced some yoga system, especially Bhakti Yoga, during one's life. He also explained briefly the Shat Chakra Yoga, how people, who are learned in the Vedas, who, utter Omkara, are also great sages who enter into the Brahman, right? We have seen in the 7th chapter. Omkara is also Krishna, right? 7.8. Raswam tapsu apsu kaunteya prabhasmi sheshi suryo. Pranavaha sarva vedeshu. What is Pranava? That is Omkara. The Ashtang Yogi lifts gradually the prana based at the bottom of the spine up to the head. And although Krishna does not mention this, this is a very difficult process. And trust me, this is not the process that could be followed in this age of Kali. He has already elaborated the Ashtanga Yoga in detail in 6 chapters. And hence, next he tells how to remember him by Shuddha Bhakti. In contrast, who always remembers Krishna without deviation? Krishna is very easy to obtain. So constant engagement of one in devotional service is most important. Forget about, all other parts of all other yoga systems. Only remember Krishna, devote yourself for Krishna's service. That is what matters the most. Previously, we have seen that there are 4 different types of devotees: the distressed, the inquisitive, those who seek material gains, and the speculative philosophers. 7.16. Chaturvida bhajante mam janaha sukritano arjuna. Artho jigya sura artharti jnani cha bharatarshabha. So he is explaining there are 4 types of, devotees. However, a pure devotee, that is Ananya Chetaha, does not desire anything but Krishna. He does not desire promotion to the heavenly planets because he understands that heavenly planets, what is there in the heavenly planets? Maybe a better comfortable life, better arrangement for sense gratification. But again, you have to come back. He does not desire oneness with the Brahma Jyoti, which also leads to, fall and again into the material world. He does not, expect or desire salvation nor liberation from material engagements. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, a pure devotee is explained as Nishkama, means who has no desire for self-interest or personal gains. Therefore, the Lord says that anyone who has unflinching love for him, it's very easy to attain him. Krishna also explains after attaining him, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries. He uses adjectives like dukkhalayam ashashvatam. What is dukkhalayam? The abode of miseries. Ashashvatam, everything is uncertain. At every step of our life in this material world, we have miseries and we have uncertainty. If you look around, maybe a cat drinking milk, maybe a dog eating food, maybe a bird eating, some grains. You can see that, they are so full of anxiety. They would eat one morsel and they would look here, 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 here. And then again, they would eat the second one. So we can understand that it's not just us. Every living being in this particular material world is having misery and uncertainty. And these yogis who achieve this are considered as ones who have accomplished the highest perfection of life and are the supreme souls. So that is what is very important. That's what is explained by Krishna. Next, he explains remembrance by comparing the material world and the spiritual world. And the last, that is what is explained here. So Krishna does not leave anything to speculations, anything to imagination. He would tell what is the difference between the material world and the spiritual world. And then you decide what you want. Later, Krishna explains the cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death is the constant from the highest to the lower planets and all places of miseries and in this material world. But one who attains Krishna's abode will never take birth again. We know that there are many higher planets like Swargaloka, Maharloka, Tapoloka, Brahmaloka, and all of them are material planets. So it's almost like a material sphere. Okay? So there are lower planets, there are middle planets, and there are higher planets. No matter where you go, you are still revolving in that sphere only. You are still in that cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death. There is no escape. The highest planet of the material world is Brahmaloka. That is Brahma's personal abode. And the lowest is the Patala. How these are classified? The highest and the lower planets are classified based on the quality of living conditions. The higher planets have better comforts and sense enjoyments, and the lower planets don't have much. Earth is at the middle. Irrespective of lower, higher, or middle, all material planets would have birth, death, and and in between these plenty of miseries. Elevation to these higher planets does not liberate one from the cycle of birth and death. As I explained, we still revolve in this sphere of the material planets. Liberation is considered as perfection of life. That's what is, the yogi's desire. However, one needs to understand that attaining Krishna's abode is the highest or the supreme perfection of life. That is beyond that perfection. And that's the reason why it's so important. Krishna also explains the creator of this material world, Brahma. Of course, Brahma is created by Krishna, but in this material world, Brahma is the creator, right? Also undergoes these bodily changes. Birth, old age, disease, and death. Although his lifespan is extensive, compared to, our calculations, our lifespan, his lifespan is 311 trillion and 40 billion years. But he also undergoes these changes. He also explains details of, partial destruction at the end of, Brahma's day, and then the complete annihilation when, Brahma also dies. And how the living entities become manifest from unmanifest states. And with Brahma's days arriving, the living entities again arrive. So you can just imagine how long a Baddha Jiva or our soul can remain in this material world if we do not follow the right path. There is no escape. And we have to undergo this birth, death, disease and, miseries every time. There is only way of, escaping this. And that is what is Krishna consciousness. So we have to ensure that we follow the instructions mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. The last section talks about how remembrance of Krishna by Bhakti Yoga is easier than Ashtanga Yoga. As in the beginning, I told you, like this, Krishna is acting as a GPS. He shows, you can go here from this route, from this route. However, you need to be on the fastest route. You have heard the GPS lady saying, you are on the fastest route. Your estimated time of arrival is 2 p.m. That's what you have heard. This is exactly what is Krishna doing here. Krishna confirms in this last section that he is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all pervading and everything is situated in him. Arjuna would see his universal form later in the 11th chapter to understand his all pervading nature. And Krishna explains there are different types of living from the material bodies. One who leaves the body in the light means at an auspicious moment of the day. During the fortnight of the waxing moon, there are, Krishna Paksha and there are Shukla Paksha, right? So, as per our calendars. So, one who lives during the fortnight of the waxing moon, that is the Shukla Paksha, or during the Uttarayan, when the sun travels to the north hemisphere. At this moment of time, we are in Dakshinayana. The sun is at the, in the southern hemisphere. Then that person attains supreme. These all conditions are required to meet like a Rubik's Cube, right? The permutation combination. You have seen the Rubik's Cube. One who lives during the smoke may attain the moon planets, but again comes back. And one who lives in darkness, that means not in dark, but not meeting these conditions of the Rubik's that these are mentioned above, he returns to the material world again. And the yogi who is perfect can select the time of his departure from the body. He can feel that, okay, fine, this is the auspicious time of this day. Thus, when the sun is in the Uttarayana, and then I decide to leave this particular body. Maybe a perfect yogi can do. But how many perfect yogis do we have? For common people like us, this is impossible, right? And hence the timing of leaving the body can't be controlled. We can't invite death, as per our convenience, this is fine. This is the time I would like to, leave this particular body. So please come. No, that's not possible. And although, there is so much of information available, the bhaktas or the devotees are aware about all these paths. They are least bothered. They are at a perfect peace of mind. And they are always fixed in devotion. Here Krishna is telling Arjuna that all of us, although there are various routes, don't get bewildered and continue to walk on the path of devotion to reach him. And Krishna confirms that a person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charities. Simply by devotional service, he attains all this. The last verse, he says, Vedeshu yaggeshu tapasu chaiva, daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam, atteti tat sarvam idam viditva yogi param sthanam upaiti chadyam. Anyone, like the yogis, they learn Vedas, or they understand, they follow the path of Jnana Yoga. They do yagyas, yaggeshu. They do some sort of austerities, tapa. But Krishna says a person who is walking on the path of devotional service, he gains all the benefits like the yogis would gain out of studying the Vedas, performing yagyas, performing austerities, some philanthropist who is, doing a lot of charity. Everything comes in the devotional service. If you recollect, Sorry, you may not have actually covered the 10th chapter yet, because I was just talking to Sumit Prabhu and he said we are just done with the 9th chapter. So in 10.10, Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yen mam payantite. So those who continuously worship him with love, he will give them the knowledge. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Krishna would impart that knowledge. You don't have to read the Vedas. You don't have to understand the processes. Krishna himself would, bless you with that knowledge. And that is what Krishna, says in the 10th chapter. So this is what is the summary of the 8th chapter. However, to end the session, I would quickly emphasize on some important topics. Okay, I still have some time. So we need to understand that the Maya, the material world in which we are living, is very strong. Daivi yesha guname mama maya duratteya. Mameva ye prapadyante maya mitam tarantite. That's what is Krishna saying, right? It's very, very strong. And even persons like Bharat Maharaj got allured by a deer. And what happened? He had to take a birth of a deer again. You may imagine a first-class devotee at the level of bhava. He had to take the birth of a deer. We all need to be extra cautious on our journey and develop unflinching love for Krishna. We need to always remember around us, there are plenty of deers jumping around us. We may get caught with them. We may get attached to them. Try to get yourself detached from these and get yourself attached to Krishna. That is what is more important. We need to determine ourselves, come may what, we need to continue our journey having full faith in Krishna and considering whatever is happening is Krishna's arrangement to get us closer to him, like Narad Muni. And that would help us develop strong connection, strong understanding, strong realization with Krishna. However, there is another example also, which talks about the Bhakta Vatsal nature of Krishna, and that we have just discussed, that is Ajamal. By even chanting the name of the Lord unintentionally, inadvertently, he got the outcome which many yogis, I mean Ashtanga yogis, may not achieve in spite of their austerities and the studies of the Vedas. This demonstrates the power of the Lord's name. So we are chanting the names of Krishna deliberately every day, by performing this 16 round yajna, and not like Ajamal, unintentionally chanting the names. Our mind, goes here and there, but we try to get that mind back again and concentrate ourselves on Krishna's name. We are always trying to remember Krishna. So please have faith that the results would be astonishing. Keep walking. Once you enter a tunnel, just imagine that you are entering a tunnel. This side of the tunnel is the material world, and that side of the tunnel is the spiritual, where Krishna is waiting for you. You have entered into the tunnel. You have started walking. And there is light behind you. You can't see anything. Everything is dark right now in front of you. Many people, come back from this stage. They feel that, oh, there is nothing ahead. But the one who keeps walking, at the end, he would see the light, and that is Krishna. So please keep walking. If we need to remember Krishna as Krishna wants us at the time of leaving the body, we need to remember Krishna always during our lifetime and never forget him for a moment. And how can that be done? Always adhere to the spiritual triangle of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So we need to adhere to this particular spiritual triangle. In this, association is also very important. I remember, Swami Vivekananda's quote. He says a raindrop, if we catch that raindrop in our hands, it is very pure, we can drink that. However, if the same raindrop falls in the gutter, that can't be even used to wash someone's feet. If the same raindrop falls on the lotus leaf, it shines like a pearl. However, if the same raindrop, if it is caught by the oyster, the raindrop itself becomes a pearl. We have heard the saying, very popular saying in English, a man is known by the company he keeps. So if we associate with a drunkard, who knows, we may become one soon. And hence we need to associate ourselves with devotees. When Sumit Prabhuji, Sri Gauradas was introducing me at the very beginning, he was talking, few things about me. But trust me, as I said, the all credit goes to the association, to the devotees. The kind of things that I have learned from them, the determination that I have seen in them, I'm just trying to be like them. That's all. We have seen in Hindi, there is a saying, Sangha ka ranga to chedega, So everyone who is, associating with someone is going to get himself colored in the same color, right? Sangha ka ranga to chedega hi. So please, follow the instructions of our spiritual master, follow the 4 regulatory principles, have association with the devotees, hear and read about Krishna by reading Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, the book like Krishna, and chant the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Harshad Prabhuji. Thank you very much. You so nicely and seamlessly took us through the summary of 8th chapter. It was fantastic. I just want to open the floor if anyone has any question or comment for Harshad Prabhuji. Eighth chapter actually, takes us through very important lessons. And Harshad Prabhuji kind of reiterated that again and again, right? That how we should always remember Krishna, and we should not take that we can take any bypass of remembering him, towards the end of life, and that will be all. No. And he gave a very nice example that our children, sometimes they appear for exams, but unless they have studied nicely, it is not possible for them to just study on the day of examination or a day before. No, that will not work. They have to consistently study. So that is the main lesson from 8th chapter. We have to lead our spiritual life sincerely with full surrender to Krishna. And our surrender to Krishna, is highlighted by the fact that we sincerely chant his names. We attentively chant his names. We associate with devotees. We study Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and attend sessions like this. So that is how surrender is reciprocated in practical terms. So I saw Hare Krishna Prabhuji, you had unmuted your line. Do you have any question or comment for Harshad Prabhuji?
Yeah, Prabhuji, it's a nice, inspiring session with you. With knowledge and full of knowledge and inspiration. And I have one small question. Question is not a question, doubt, I will say. Jnani is a devotee, Prabhuji. Is it audible?
Now it's audible. There was some mixture of voices. Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah.
Is a Jnani a devotee or a devotee is a Jnani?
See, it's all about, Sri Gauradas or Sumit Prabhu can also add. There is, Bhakti Anukul Jnana. So when we read about Krishna, when we read Bhagavad Gita, when we read Bhagavatam, we attend certain classes, etc. Our intention is to understand Krishna, and strengthen our love for Krishna further. So that is what a devotee is associated for gaining the knowledge. And that is what is Bhakti Anukula Jnana. However, there are certain jnanis, who are only striving to gain knowledge. And they are, believing on their own endeavors. They are not on the path of bhakti. However, in the 6th chapter, you have seen how every path, ultimately culminates into bhakti only. So no matter what path someone takes, it's like, taking stairs or taking the path of, or taking the elevator. So bhakti is like taking the elevator and directly reaching the top of the, of the building. For example, if suppose I tell you like this is a tree and you need to water in the soil so that the tree can grow. So if you have that belief that my spiritual master has told me this, I would follow his instructions and I would continue doing that. And you follow that. You just water the soil where, the roots are there. You haven't seen the roots also. But your spiritual master has told you to water the soil and you have started following that. So that is what is bhakti. However, a jnani is, he would try to understand what are the roots, where are they? He would start digging. And then he would understand, oh, here are the roots. I need to water them now. And then he start following that. So that is the difference between, a jnani and a bhakta, basically. However, a jnani can also be a bhakta, whereas a bhakta can also be a jnani always. A bhakta would always know the philosophies also very well. So Shri Gaur Prabhu, please add if, I am not able to answer this well.
I think so. You answered it very nicely, Prabhuji. Hari Krishna Prabhu, did you understand?
Yeah, it's. I understood it very well, Prabhuji. Thanks for your clearing the doubt, my doubt.
Thank you so much, Hari Krishna Prabhuji.
And Jignasi means who is attached to material world.
No, who is curious? Who is curious to know? Yeah. Inquisitive.
Just to know about material things or spiritual things?
Spiritual things. Spiritual things.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other question or comment?
Like, I don't, I want to feel like Paramatma in myself, like how to recognize that one, Prabhuji?
Yeah, so I may not be in a position to, answer this clearly, but whatever I have heard, we, as I said, we are a Baddha Jiva, basically, and we are having a thick coating of material attachment. Because of that, we have forgotten our relationship with the Supreme Lord, right? So just imagine, like, we are standing on a line. We are at the center. On one side is Krishna, and the other side is the material world. At this moment of time, we have, turned our back to Krishna. We are seeing at the material world, and we have developed a lot of attachment towards the material world. And that's the reason why our bonds with Krishna are either strained, like the rubber gets stretched, or they are completely broken, right? So in this particular manner, what we need to understand is, basically, we need to, as Krishna has explained, the material world is full of miseries, as well as it is uncertain, like dukkhalayam ashashvatam. So when we know the quality of the material world, it's so impure, it's so bad. Do you really want to entangle yourself in this, or you need to turn your face to Krishna and start walking towards that. That is the decision that we need to make. The moment we decide, you walk one step, Krishna will walk 100 steps for you. We have to always believe that Krishna is always around me. Whatever I'm doing it for Krishna. We have to always remember that. The moment we start considering that, the layers of the material entanglement start diminishing. And then we would be in a position to start understanding the presence of Krishna, our strong connection with Krishna. And then the bonds with the material world would start loosening and our bonds with Krishna would start improving. So that is how, we can, revive our relationship with Krishna, and then we can start understanding the presence of Paramatma in our soul. So I hope I am able to answer your question, but Shri Gaur Prabhu, if you want to add anything more, please feel free to add.
Thank you, Harshit Prabhu. So Hare Krishna Prabhuji, your specific question is in relation to Paramatma, or is it relation to Bhagwan Shri Krishna?
Like relation to, not relation, how to feeling, I would say, how to experience or feel that.
In particular Paramatma, or feeling, Bhagwan Krishna?
Feeling Paramatma in the body.
Okay, so can I ask you, like, what do you understand by feeling of Paramatma in the body? From, like, I want to better understand what you are asking so that, I can help.
Like, we have like Jivatma, Paramatma, and Brahman, three terms, right? Three stairs or whatever it's called, is called. Like Bhagavan means whole this entire Krishna's complete manifestations. Like even he is present as a Paramatma in individual body, in individual living entity. Like how to feel like now I can feel that like based on consciousness, we said like it is soul, and that soul is Jivatma. And how to find that Paramatma in the heart?
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying. So first of all, I will explain you that the three stages of realization starts with Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. It is not Atma, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. We are Atma, and we realize the absolute truth in three stages of understanding, which is Brahman. Brahman is compared to the light. Brahman is spread all across, right? It's like energy, light. The higher realization of absolute truth is Paramatma realization, where as an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma is located in each and every living body, as well as in each and every atom. And that expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead literally is known as Shirodaksha Vishnu. Okay. The highest realization of absolute truth is in the form of Bhagavan. Bhagavan as the person, as the personality. And his personality has been defined as Satchitananda Vigraha. Right? Supreme bliss, eternity, and full of knowledge. Now, when we say that we have to realize any of these things, either it is Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan, first of all, the God realization, the step of God realization starts with self-realization. First of all, we have to realize, as of today, we are living in bodily consciousness. So, from there, we have to upgrade ourselves in a consciousness of that we are spirit soul. Right? What Krishna explains from 2.11 to 2.30 in Bhagavad Gita. Right? That we are different from the body and we are eternal spirit soul. which can never be annihilated. So first we have to come to that platform. When we come to that platform, then we come to the platform of understanding our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? Whether it is Paramatma, whether it is Bhagavan, or whether it is Brahman. Now, in every age, there is a specific method. Age means, Satyug, Treta Yug, Dwapar Yug, and Kali Yug. So every age, there is a particular method of God realization. Right? And the method in Kali Yuga is Harinam Sankirtan. Through that method, we can realize the highest form of absolute personality, which is Bhagavan. Now, if you want to realize that, we have to follow the rules and regulations of the spiritual path, which are same, which every time realize starts with following the rules and regulations like no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit relationship. These are the basic things, right? Then getting up early, try to control our senses, eating only prasadam, trying to chanting Krishna's name. All these are process, and these processes will be robust and strong when all of this is done in association of devotees. If you do all these things in isolation, without association of devotees, then they will never fructify. They will never fructify. Prabhupada even goes to an extent saying that if you try to read Bhagavatam independent of devotees, then you will not be able to understand. So all these things should always be done in association of devotees. And then we'll come to the platform of self-realization. And when we continue to do this stage by stage, from Shraddha, Sadhu Sang, Bhajan Kriya, Anarth Nivrati, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhav, Prem, we'll go to the highest platform gradually to realization of Bhagavan. Now, when it comes to specific realization of Paramatma, this was something which is little more tedious process, and it is not recommended for Kali Yuga. This was primarily the process which was used by yogis in Satya Yuga, Paramatma realization. And if you see in the 6th chapter and also in Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, Kapil Dev is describing this whole process. And he says that, it is primarily practiced in Satyuga. Krate yadhyayato vishnum tretayam yajrato makhe dwapare paricharyayam kalo tadhari kirtana. And the Ashtanga Yoga process was practiced in Kali Yuga for 10,000 years. Now in Kali Yuga, life is hardly 100 years. So how will we practice that? So, and it is, and the Ashtanga Yoga and Jnana Yoga process primarily is for celibates. Ghrastas cannot, in comfort of city, at home, we can practice superficial limbs of Ashtanga Yoga or Jnana Yoga. But if we have to really follow it as it is, then you have to be a celibate. And these things are practiced, in the forest. And Kali Yuga, even practicing these things in forest is almost impossible. So for Kali Yuga, the highest process is given, which is Bhakti Yoga, and it is practiced by starts with chanting the names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that is the easy path of self-realization and God realization.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji, for elaboration of this. I understood. One more thing is if we realize Bhagavan is that whatever fruitive results or sins or whatever, it will be cleared off, right?
See, if you want to fire a wood, Can you fire a wood while in parallel pouring water on the wood?
No.
The first thing is you have to stop pouring water. So your sins and fruitive activities cannot go hand in hand with, pure devotional service. To start with, yes, we can all start practicing. And Prabhupada said, you start hearing, you start reading, and you start chanting. Gradually, we will gain strength to control our senses. Gradually, we will gain strength to stop fruitive activities. See, fruitive activities are same activities which we would do in pure devotion also, right? Like Arjun and Duryodhan, both were fighting. One was fighting for Krishna, one was fighting against Krishna. So fruitive activities are done for pleasure of our senses, while devotional service, devotional activities are done for pleasure of Krishna. Same thing, you can work in the same company. One is for our sense gratification and other is for pleasure of Krishna. But, sinful activities, fruitive activities and bhakti, cannot go hand in hand. First, our endeavor should be to chant nicely, to read, deeply, to hear from sadhus. And gradually, that detachment will come. Gradually. Abhyasena kaunteya vairagya cha kriyate. So, Krishna tells in 6th chapter to Arjuna, yes, asanshaya mahabhavo mana dur nigraham chalam. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagya cha kriyate. Practice. Keep practicing.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, for asking nice questions. Anyone else has any question or comment for Harshad Prabhuji? So thank you. Yeah, Jyoti Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. One of my question is like, when I started chanting, somebody told me that don't, get up a kanha like my Laddu Gopal. I just, when I wake up and, started chanting after bath and all. So I just, try to sit kana in the Singhashan. So they said that kana is doing Ras Leela, something like that. So don't wake up in the morning. Something like that. It is true?
See, in Vrindavan, because this question is a general question and not related to 8th chapter, I will take permission from Harshad Prabhuji to answer.
Yeah, this. Sorry. This question I thought like when I, in the meeting I would ask.
No. Yeah, that is fine. So, see, we have to see, as Harshad Prabhu said, triangle. The triangle is something which is very important. The triangle is made up of what? Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, right? And they, what do you mean by triangle? That whenever someone says something, Guru says, then other Sadhu should be saying something, same thing, and the Shastra should be saying the same thing. So all these three things should be aligned with each other. Now what happens? What are we seeing the sadhus following? In all the temples, what time does Mangala Aarti happen? 4:30 a.m. Mangala Aarti in whole of Vrindavan, whole of Braj, you will see. Across world, you will see. Mangala Aarti happens at 4:30 a.m. Right? So 4:30 a.m. Before that, we wake our lordships. We offer some fruits, butter or whatever. Then we will perform Aarti. And then after that, we start chanting. So if you are following that thing, you are waking up Kana, and thereafter you are chanting your rounds. That is totally perfect, Mataji.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? You are all asking nice questions. Thanks for asking. So you are almost all of you are joining the morning chanting. This is very nice. You please continue to join, even for 1 round, 2 round, how many ever rounds you are doing. I hope that would be definitely helping you, because that is an association of devotees. We are chanting our rounds in association of devotees, and that association of devotees is most important thing. We have to perform limbs of bhakti yoga in association of devotees. So thanks all of you. Thank you very much, Harshad Prabhuji, for taking us through the 8th chapter. Thank you
so
very
much for inviting me. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.